Creativity. What is it actually? Is it a blend of thinking, emotions, motivation, or is there a scientific formula behind it? Sometimes you would have noticed that people's creative juices just flow out on paper. They tend to write, they tend to create art, but sometimes there's just a big creative block that seems like never ending, bigger than any deadline or agendas to meet. But there's one industry that has been involved in this creative business since ever and creating fabulous work without fault, and that is the advertising industry. I'm glad that indiantelevision.com has taken this initiative to bring out the stories behind some of the best creative minds in the Indian advertising ecosphere. And I will be hosting the season for the show called Ad Break for you. I am Mansi Sharma, and opening the season with us today is the legendary Mr. Bharat Dabholkar. I welcome you, Bharat, on the show.
And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Well, Mr. Dabholkar doesn't need much of an introduction, but just to give a little background on him, he's not just a fabulous ad guru, but he has been a maverick theater personality, has written some of the best theater plays and is very popular amongst the circuit. He has also acted in some of the Bollywood films and is one of the most creative and dynamic individuals out there. To his credit, in the advertising line, the most popular work you could recognize him with is the hordes and hordes of Amul butter hoardings that he created with Dakuna agency way back, and also some of the jingles which you may remember. And my favorite amongst them is Mango Fruity, fresh and juicy. Bharat, before we get into any discussion around creativity or, the topic that I discussed with you, humor in advertising, which you have been credited with a few other people to bring to the Indian advertising industry, I would just like to know, how have you managed to do all of this? Being a theater personality, being an actor, being a spectacular writer, and obviously being one of the leading creative heads in our advertising industry.
I have been doing advertising. I've been doing theater. I've written 32 plays up to now, musical plays, all performed. I've been doing films. I find that the most difficult thing to do amongst all this is advertising. Because see, everything else, you are aware of who your consumer is, who your audience is. When I do a play, I know who is watching my play. If something goes wrong, I find something is not working, I can change it before the next show. If I don't feel like writing a play, I don't have to write a play for the next 2 years. If I don't want to write a film, I don't have to write a film for the next 10 years. Nobody bothers. But advertising is creativity on demand. Advertising means that day in, day out, for all these years, you have to keep on coming up with great creative ideas on a daily basis. And the worst part, and I keep saying this to everybody, that advertising, you don't need to be just creative. You need to have the skin of a rhino, because you face more rejection than any other business. You worked out some brilliant campaigns that you think you put your heart and soul in them, maybe 3 or 4 of them as alternatives, and you go to a client and there's a great chance that he'll reject all the campaigns and not even give you a reason for why he's rejected them. If you ask him what exactly didn't you like, and he'll say, I can't put my finger on it, but kuch jamani, something didn't work. And then you go back again with the same smile on your face and you work out 4 new campaigns and come back again to this guy. And there are chances that he'll keep rejecting it forever. And you've got to keep on coming up with this on a regular basis. No other profession expects you to do that. It's advertising, and you have to do that in a limited time. You have 30 seconds or you have 20 seconds in which you have to entertain, sell a product, make sure that your campaign is more remembered than the competitors' campaigns, and all in 30 seconds or 20 seconds or 50 words. It's very challenging, and I think no other industry, creative industry, comes anywhere close to what we have to go through in advertising. And the other point is, we don't even know who we are talking to. In advertising, you are talking to people who are not even seen. You're talking to people in the major metro cities you're talking to small towns, you're talking to villages, and you have to convince all of them through that one campaign to buy your products. That is very difficult.
I have read it on the internet while I was doing all of this research. You never like planned to get into advertising, and it just
No,
somehow happened. Can you take me through the process, how it all began, and how did you start enjoying it?
I'm a lawyer by education, lawyer and business management. My lifelong ambition was to be an IPS officer. I had no interest in getting into advertising. So while I was doing my law, I was doing my business management and working in a company called Forbes Campbell, which is a Tata Group company. And there I got interested in advertising. So I never practiced, not one day. And I wanted to get into advertising, and nobody wanted me, because every time I applied to an agency, they would say, "But you are what? You are a lawyer. You are a business management guy. Why do you want to get into advertising?" And I would say, "No, I like meeting people. I like writing stuff." And they wouldn't believe that. So I must have gone to, I don't know, 10 agencies who didn't want me. And then thankfully, Mr. Sylvester Dicuna, who had this agency, who still had an agency called Dicuna Associates, they were looking for a person and they took me on. And I joined them as a client servicing person. And I was handling some of the biggest accounts that they had. We had big accounts. We had huge. We had Amul, we had Glaxo, we had Sandoz, we had LIC, we had Bank of India. Now the process in advertising, what happens is a client servicing guy goes to a client, takes a brief from them of what they require for their product, comes back and briefs the creative, which is art and copy. And they create a campaign. He has to go and sell that campaign to the client. Now, when you do that, you have to deal with a lot of egos that creative people have. That they may say, "Look, I don't have time. I'm working on something else right now. I'll take care of this later." And you have a deadline to meet. So to cut short this entire process, I started writing myself. Now my problem is, see, I have done my entire schooling in Marathi. So I'm very proficient in Marathi. So I could write Marathi, I could write Hindi. I've grown up with Gujaratis. So I can read and write and speak Gujarati. So I could write in Gujarati. And I had picked up English, and then I had mixed and matched English with all these languages. And then somebody called it fashionably Hinglish. And so I could write in English. So whatever my clients wanted, I could create a campaign for them in similar languages that they needed. And they were getting approved. So nobody minded, because it was cutting everybody's time short. And they were saying, "Fine, if you're doing it, go ahead and do it." That's how I became somebody from my day, very early in my life in advertising till today, where I deal with my clients. I'm a client servicing person, and I write all the campaigns that I've done for the clients that I handle. So it became a combined effort, which was great fun. And that has continued forever. I've done it, every client that I've handled, whether it was Fruity, Happy, Bailey Mineral Water, Thumbs Up 500, or Good Night, or Hit, or Amul. Amul Butter I didn't launch, but I launched Amul Milk, I launched Amul Lassi, Amul Milkshakes, and all those products that I launched. And every line that went while I was handling that was written by me. So it was great fun for me. I enjoyed doing it, and it worked.
And we are glad. We are glad that it all happened. You could have some of the greatest gems of Indian advertising, which generations would remember. Coming to the topic of discussion for today, I wanted to know from you one of the things that has been a part of your signature style, that is adding humor or satire to a copy, be it in the advertising world when you did some of the campaigns for Amul, and even also in theatre, you have also actively working on some of the satire pieces. What I believe as a writer myself, that it is one of the most complicated genres to write, the humor and the satire version.
Yes.
So what is the creative process for you about this? How do you go about writing such pieces? Also keeping in mind that there might be several people who might be offended by it when you are creating it.
Let's begin with Amul Butter. I did not create the Amul Butter campaign. It existed. The Amul Butter girl existed. Mr. Sylvester Dicuna had created that campaign. The line "utterly butterly" existed. It was a part of a jingle. It was the last line of a jingle. Amul is the answer to your wishes. It's utterly butterly delicious. That was the end of the jingle. So when I joined, this already existed. My, I think, contribution over the next 15 years that I handled it was that I Indianized that Amul girl. It no more remained a a polka dotted frock wearing westernized girl. She was wearing a 9-yard sari, she was wearing chaniya choli, she was wearing a Punjabi dress, she was wearing a Bengali sari. And I kept on doing this thing with different languages. So for a Tamil Nadu hoarding, I would do a Tamil line. I would do a Gujarati line for a Ahmedabad hoarding. I changed it more fast than they were changing earlier. I think I Indianized that Amul girl much more. I think that was my contribution to it. Now, the only thing I always say is the humor that worked with Amul does not work with any other brand. See, Amul has over the years maybe a 80% market share. So we were not selling Amul butter through those hoardings. We were not saying this is a creamy butter which will make your food tastier. You can put it on your toast, so you can give it to your children on their paratha. We were not doing that. We were just making people smile. So Amul butter became sort of a brand ambassador for the entire Amul lot. Yeah. Even today, when you see Amul Doodh ad, Amul, the taste of India, they show you that girl. That girl is not the Amul girl, actually, that's the Amul butter girl. But she's become synonymous with everything that Amul does now. But what we could do with Amul, we couldn't do with other Amul products. Because there we had to hard sell. I handled a brand called Nutramul, which is an Amul brand. We had a competition with Bonvita and Boost. Now we couldn't make jokes there. We had to be hard sell. I launched Amul Milk. We had to be very serious about what the milk was. It was the first Tetra Pak milk in the country. So humor worked for Amul butter because it had that market domination. It does not work with other brands which can't afford to have that kind of domination. So Amul butter writing was a different ball game. And I always say this, that the credit for whatever Amul was, is and will be in future does not go to guys like us. You can find thousands of guys who are creative. You can't find a client like Dr. Kurian, who was the head, he was the creator of Amul. So he told us at the very beginning that I have a choice of 400 or whatever, 1,000 agencies that I can choose from. I've chosen your agency. Likuna Associates was the agency. It still is. I understand nothing in advertising. I understand milk and milk products. So I do not want to interfere in what you do. Don't show me what you do. Just make sure that whatever you do, you make sure that our products are sold. So Dr. Kurian was the only client in the entire world till today who said, I will pay for it, but don't show me what you're doing. So Amul butter could become so topical and so humorous because there was no client to go to. See, the moment you go to a client and involve the client and the other people on client side, everybody has a thought to contribute. Everybody says, let's change the color, let's change the line, let's have a look at some other line, let's have a look at some other picture. Here, I could sit in the evening, like now we are talking, and suppose I was writing the Amul butter hoarding and there was a match going on, and if Virat Kohli or Dhoni scored a century, I would think of a line. If I was in the office, call the guy, the artist, and say, do a drawing like this, write like this, tell the media department, put up a scaffolding on the hoarding, and let's start painting it in the night. And we would start painting that hoarding tonight. So in tomorrow's morning paper, when you read that Dhoni had scored a century, on the Amul butter hoarding, there was a joke on that Dhoni's century. And people couldn't figure out how the hell did this happen. You had to actually go and paint physically. Now it's easier. Now you put a flex and it gets done in 1 hour's time. In those days, actually painters had to put up a scaffolding and paint everything in that hoarding. Now that was only possible because there was no client to go and meet. And humor in advertising, since that was your topic, is the most difficult thing to do because unlike in the US, where your audience is very easier to understand. There are whites, there are blacks, there are Hispanics, and there are Indians. Here, when you are doing something humorous, we have to do it in 14 languages. So what is humorous in English or Hindi may not be humorous in Tamil because language restrictions. I may do some pun on some English word in English, which may not work in Tamil. It may not work in Bengali. So doing humorous, which is a spoken humor or written humor, is very difficult because we have such a wide variety of consumers. And we do that one ad. If it ad goes on television, all over India, people are seeing the same ad. So what people in Mumbai or Pune may love it, people in Delhi may not like it, or people in Bihar may not like it. And you have to reach out to everybody.
Yeah.
So verbal humor or written humor is more difficult to do here. You are better off doing something which is a non-verbal humor. I mean, if you had seen that campaign of that Fevikwik where that fisherman catches 4 fishes by putting 4 dots of Fevikwik on a stick, that had no language. So it works everywhere. The moment you have language and you do any humorous thing in the language, somebody may lose out on that. It may not translate well in another language. And most languages, if you do a campaign like for LIC, if I do a campaign, or for Bank of India when I used to do a campaign, or for Glaxo or Sandoz, they go in 14 languages. Now, how do you create the same humor in 14 languages? It's very difficult because every language has its own lilt, every language has its own nuances. You can't replicate that in other languages. So humor becomes very difficult to do in advertising. You have to be very careful of what you say.
And everything is very dynamic these days. And if we look at the mainline agency parts, be it creating for print, be it creating for television videos, do you think now we have a dearth of good writers who understand humor and satire?
Yes. We have a dearth of writers I'm talking about. I'm not talking about people who create TikTok films and things which are very funny, which are fantastic. I'm talking about mainstream or any other advertising writers or theater writers. There are very few people who can write good humor. Humor is a very difficult thing to do, and not many people can do that well. So what people are doing as fun thing, they're very creative. I go as a judge to various colleges and college competitions, and I find the youngsters have tremendous sense of humor and tremendous sense of creativity. What the youngsters can do in 2 hours, as professional advertising agency people, we can't do in 2 months.
Yes.
Youngsters have a fantastic idea of how things can be creative, which I think they lose when they get into any work space because then they're told what to do. I think people kill their creativity.
Exactly.
Left to themselves, and I've seen that continuously, that the younger you are, the more creative you are. When I go and judge things, even art competitions, I find that the 10-year-olds have more creativity than a 20-year-old has. And a 20-year-old has more creativity than a 30-year-old has. Because I think as you grow, you get conditioned by what society tells you. You get conditioned by trying to understand who you are talking to. You want to be more clever. You want to do something which is more intelligent sounding. So you lose that freshness of creativity. Youngsters have that. Which is why in college competitions, if I've gone and seen a competition where they're doing advertising campaigns, they don't have clients there. They don't have other people telling them what to do. But when they get into mainstream advertising, I think they lose that creativity. And the biggest problem that the advertising industry is facing today is that youngsters don't want to get into mainstream advertising. They would rather do digital stuff.
Agreed.
They're more keen to do that than do this mainstream advertising where you sit and write press ads and you do hoardings and you do television things, you go and meet clients, and they don't want to get into all that. They're far more interested in doing digital advertising. They're interested in doing short films, which is why I think advertising industry as a whole is losing out on a lot of creative minds coming into it.
And how can the industry work towards solving it? Is there more training required for younger people or a change in approach? I don't know. What do you suggest?
I think there is more freedom required for younger people. If I send you an email, I have a permanent line on my email.
Yes.
It says a camel is a horse designed by a committee.
Yes.
When a committee sits to design a horse, everybody has a point of view. Somebody says, let's make his legs longer. Somebody says, let's make his neck longer. So you don't get a horse, you get a camel.
Yeah.
So if you want the youngsters to do great work, choose them well, and then leave them to be. Let them do what they are good at. Don't interfere in what they do. If clients start treating advertising agency as their partners rather than their suppliers, I think they'll get far better work. The best of the work that I have done in my career is for clients who had tremendous faith in me.
Adding on to this part, can advertisers today afford to give that sort of freedom? Because again, there's a lot of volatility in the environment right now, not just in India, but even from a global perspective. The socio-economic dynamics are changing. There's a lot more awareness. There are a lot more support groups for very many topics. So, can advertisers afford giving that sort of freedom to an agency?
I'll tell you how it works. When I launched a campaign for Seat tires, the
Yeah.
Bond of Rhino. That was my campaign, Rhino.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
that time, Seat tires had told us that we have the kind of technology which makes tires the toughest tires in the market. Nobody has that technology. So we had a product advantage, which you could
Yes.
harp on. There are clients who have a marketing advantage, that we have better packaging, we have better distribution, we have better retail support, we have better pricing. So you have a product advantage. What has happened today is you don't have marketing, you don't have product advantage. All products are similar to each other, minor differences. You don't have marketing advantage because the same product and all your competitors are available in the same markets, same shops. You don't have Kirana stores only now, you have supermarkets. So everything is on the same shelf. So if there are 15 shampoos in the market, they're all on 15 shampoos are on the same shelf. They all look the same. They all have fantastic packaging. Now, no product advantage, very minor product advantage, if at all. No marketing advantage, no pricing advantage. The only advantage you can have is a creative advantage. If you can create campaigns that make people believe that you are better. I'll give you an example. There was some study done years ago in the US where they did a blind testing. You know what a blind testing is? You don't show the consumers names of the product.
Yes, yes.
And you make them taste it.
Yes.
And find out which is better. Some fantastic, maybe over 60% people could not, or maybe 70% people could not tell the difference between Coke and Pepsi in a blind test. Now, the very fact that both these brands world over pour millions of dollars in advertising year after year is because they need to create an image for themselves. So if Pepsi tries to create an image of a cola for the younger generation, the product doesn't say that. It can be replaced with Coke and nobody will know the difference.
Exactly.
But the campaign makes you believe that I am a Pepsi user because I am the new generation. I am a Coke user because I am a certain kind of a person. Now that only happens with the creative advantage. So advertisers who are clever, who are intelligent, marketing people, must understand that unless you create campaigns that are different from everybody else, you are willing to take that chance, it won't work. See, when you try and be safe, that let's not take a chance, let's fall, everybody buys this product because of this kind of a campaign. So let's try and be similar to them. Or let's use just a film star because we feel that will work for us. It does not work like this. Just using a film star in your advertising does not make you any better than any other products. People remember what the film star was wearing, how they behaved, how they acted. They don't remember what the product was. So that creative spark that comes from good creative people is the only thing that can make products survive and thrive. And a good advertising and a good marketing people, a person must realize this. Give a free hand. As you are saying, the market is very volatile. You have to constantly be doing something that is different.
Yeah.
And by 10 people sitting on this who are maybe beyond the age of understanding how people are buying things, you can't create a good campaign. This is a thing for youngsters. You need younger minds who know exactly what is happening in the world to create campaigns. You can't have a 50-year-old sitting and deciding how a soft drink should be sold. You're too old for that. Let a 18-year-old, let a 25-year-old decide how it should be sold. He understands the language. He understands what works for people of his age. So give them a free hand. Don't sit on his head and say, do this because I am the boss and I have a right to tell you what you should do. That's the wrong approach.
Also, several of the researchers in the recent times have suggested that one, youngsters are more inclined towards brands that are supporting a cause. And secondly, a lot of youngsters, they have exposure to technology, to information. So they are more aware in their approach. So when both of these dynamics come together, and as you said that youngsters should get a chance to create
Yeah.
advertisements, do you think it's easier for the younger generation to create humor which is not offensive in nature?
No, it is not that. It is see, humor, as I told you, a youngster creating a humorous ad in Mumbai may not know what a youngster in Bihar wants to see. So it's not about youngsters. We have such a vast country with everybody having different ideas about what is funny. It doesn't have to do anything with age, creating humor. A youngster in Mumbai may create humor that is working for youngsters in Mumbai. It may not work for youngsters in Kerala. So advertising is a different ball game. It's not about what your peer group wants to hear. No, I'll tell you one thing, because people aren't sensitive about everything in this world. They are sensitive very broadly about three things: religion, communalism, and sexism.
Yes.
These are the three topics which you should avoid in advertising. And you can do what else you want, nobody bothers. You can't get into trouble for doing anything else, nobody bothers. Don't get into religious things because it can sell a product. Don't get into communal things because it can sell a product. And don't get sexist. You have to be careful about avoiding these three topics. Not only in advertising, avoid that in advertising, avoid that in theater, avoid that in films. Because those can get you into trouble. You have a whole wild selection of things to do. There's so many things that you can make fun of. There's so many things that you can touch upon. Just keep away from these three things. Don't make fun of women because you'll get into trouble. Don't make fun of religion, no matter what religion you want to make fun of, even remotely. And don't make fun of communities of any kind. Like in the US, you can't make fun of blacks or can't make fun of Hispanics or whatever. That can get you into trouble.
So I am from Delhi, and we Delhiites have a very, satirical tone when it comes to conversation. We think of ourselves as very funny people. But what I have noticed, and as I'm growing up and I'm reading more about it, that most of our jokes are based on stereotypes. So there's something about a religion, something about a gender, very stereotypically based. And some of them, obviously, as a woman, if I hear something very stereotypical, it affects me, it hurts me. So do you think there's a general need of changing this culture, developing more consciousness about it? Or is it okay? Is it okay to take things in a lighter tone sometimes?
I'll tell you what, these things work with stand-up comedians, it works. Because they're not selling anything. There are people who come there, they're having a drink, they're similar kind of people, they laugh, if they don't like you, they'll curse you, and they'll go away. If you're talking about hard selling of products, then you have to be careful. If you're a stand-up comedian, you don't have to worry. You go and talk, you're talking in front of people like you. You're talking about your parents, you're talking about a thing, you're talking about women, you're talking about underwear. You can say what you want to say. Those guys laugh, they're also having a good time, they're there to have a good time, they're having a drink, they're having a beer. That's a completely different ball game. The moment you get into mass media advertising, whether it's on television or social media, you're creating a campaign for a digital release, you're talking to people that you don't know. You're talking to people whose sensitivities, maybe you'll be hurting their sensibilities. So you have to be, I'm talking about advertising as a mainstream thing.
And just to elaborate a little more on that, I would like to hear from you. We avoid these topics and we are creating humor about several other things that are available out there. Can you suggest a process that can be followed?
So, yeah, I'll tell you what, advertising is not somebody just sitting in a room and thinking of an idea.
Yeah.
Good research goes behind advertising. There's a
Yeah.
whole research and planning that goes into who are your consumers, where are they staying, what are they reading, what are their attitudes in life. So a campaign gets created when all this is cleared. It's not somebody sitting in a room and, as I said, Amul butter was the only exception where there was none of this. So you have to follow, every youngster has to keep in mind that you have to follow the process. You have to follow the whole thing of a planning department or a research department telling you who your consumer is, what their likes and dislikes are, what is he reading, what is he watching, and then you create a campaign. So it's not as easy as just sitting and thinking of an idea. That is fine arts. That is writing a poetry or making a drawing, a painting, that's fine arts. Advertising is commercial art, which means that it has to sell a product. You are a part of a marketing mix. You are not there to be creative. The mistake that a lot of people make is they feel that if you are creative, you shouldn't be simple. You should try and be creative. You should try and do very complicated stuff, which is where things go wrong. I keep quoting this all the time that the best board, a hoarding I had seen was in Hong Kong, which just said, seedless grapes, very sweet, available here. I think that's the best campaign I have seen. It told me these are seedless grapes, they're sweet, and I can get them here. If an agency had to do this, they would say, oh, that's too simple. Anybody can write that. Yeah? Any idiot can write that. I would say, nature's bounty in its most pristine form is brought to you here. Because that's creative. That's very poetic. Makes no sense to a consumer. Advertising's first job is to be creative by being simple. I launched Hit Cockroach, the cockroach, that red can. We were fighting against a bigger brand, which had, I think, maybe 10 times more money than us. And we were launching almost at the same time. They had made some 5 different campaigns about cockroaches and how their brand would work on a cockroach. I did a simple thing. My line was, cockroach, cockroach, hit cockroach, no cockroach. So my campaign in press was on one side of the paper, when you opened it, that entire page was full of cockroaches. I actually shot real cockroaches which looked as if they're walking on that paper. Yeah. Most hideous sight when you open your morning paper, that there are hundreds of cockroaches walking on that side of the paper, and it just said cockroach, cockroach. And on the other side, the right side, was a white paper, white side, just had the hit can, and it said hit cockroach, no cockroach. And we had a 60% market share by being simple. The biggest challenge of being creative is how can you be simple and not creative. That's why a lot of government things go wrong, because they try and rhyme everything. They try and make poetry out of everything. They never tell you a simple message. They don't say, don't spit here. That's too simple. They would try and say, शहर को रखेंगे साफ, तो ये हो जाएगा, गुनाह हो जाएगा, माफ, or something. They want to be creative, you know, which doesn't make any sense. Tell the people what you want them to do or not to do. So advertising has responsibility, and creativity means how can you say the same thing in the simplest possible form that the consumer will understand and still make it different from what everybody else is saying.
What I've understood from this whole conversation is that creativity is not meant to be formalized, or you don't need 2 chemicals and do a big blast to create something. It's just about being more aware, knowing people around you, and just being simple.
Understanding what people want.
Yeah.
And how you can, and you have 10 other products which are competing with your product. How can you be different and at the same time not be so different that nobody understands what you're saying? And how can you say it in the simplest possible way? I go to lots of small towns to give talks. A lot of small. And I always tell them, the people that I meet the marketing heads there and things of different companies who are who have companies in those towns. And I tell them, don't come to Mumbai to find an agency. Because the people who are working, the smaller agencies who are working in your town, understand the nuances of your town. If I'm talking to somebody in Raipur or Indore, an Indore agency would understand that far better than I would understand sitting in Mumbai. I wouldn't know how an Indore person thinks. Maybe there's a certain idiom in Indori way of talking that is delightfully nice, that people understand. I may not know that. So work with smaller agencies, because work with people who understand nuances of your consumers. Advertising campaigns depend a lot on the study of all this. And then you create a campaign. You don't begin with a campaign, you end with a campaign. After having done all this, the psychographics, the demographics, then you come to a conclusion that this is what I'm doing. And lots of times you go wrong. You are from Delhi, right? I went wrong because I didn't understand Delhi Punjabi culture. I launched India's most expensive tea for Tata Tea, called Prestige, which was the most expensive tea, which was only to be launched in Delhi for limited stocks. Now, in my mind, I think like a Mumbai guy. In Mumbai, we don't give a damn where you live, what designer clothes you wear, what cars you drive. In Delhi, people, these things matter a lot. Are you living in Defense Colony, or are you living in something else, or do you drive a BMW or a Mercedes? I believe these things matter a lot. I've never lived in Delhi. I've had clients in Delhi, but I've never lived in Delhi. So when I did this campaign, I did a campaign with Shekhar Kapoor. He was a friend of mine. I had made him start a advertising filmmaking company. And we had this whole thing of this guy who's dressed in a little faded t-shirt, and he's got little torn jeans. That time torn jeans weren't popular. Now they are. And he had a little hole in his shoe. And I thought that's what a rich Mumbai guy would dress like this. Damn, what they're wearing. And I forgot that we are launching this campaign in Delhi.
Yes.
So when that campaign was launched, I mean, that guy was rich. He was in a helicopter and sitting and flying to a party. But he was wearing clothes like this. And he was talking about this Prestige tea. It didn't work because they said, for Delhi people, he looked like a bhikari laga ye to aadmi. फटे कपड़े इसके जूते में एक होल है, इसके एक फेडेड टी शर्ट है, ये थोड़ी एक्सपेंसिव चाय पी सकता है. If I am selling a product to a Delhiite, I must know how a Delhiite thinks.
Exactly.
I can't look at my surroundings and say, अच्छा यहाँ ऐसे करते हैं तो everybody must be doing the same thing. I'm talking about the same age group. I'm talking about the same income group. This guy also earns 50,000 rupees a month. The Delhi guy also earns 50,000 rupees a month. So they must be thinking similarly. And I could go wrong by thinking like that. Which is why research matters, at least in finding out. Research should not tell you what to do in creative terms. Research and planning should tell you what is the consumer you are talking to. That's all. And then let the creative do what they want to do. Trouble happens when research starts telling you how the creative should work.
Great insights from you, Bharat, and it was very interesting to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining me on this opening episode of the show.
Great fun.
Thank you again for joining us here today.
It was great fun for me. We must do it again sometimes else, and we'll discuss it in more details.
For sure, for sure. And whenever this lockdown thing ends and I can travel, I'm coming to meet you personally.
We'll meet up. Yes, 100%. We'll meet up.
Thank you so much.